D. A stranger in the wreckage. The stars were silent, cold, empty. Captain Raylan sat alone in the cockpit of his old cargo ship, the Dustwalker. He wasn't expecting anything unusual. He was just moving scrap metal from one dead moon to another. A boring job. A quiet day. Just how he liked it. But then the alarm rang. Incoming distress signal, the ship's AI said in a calm voice. Raylan frowned. From where? A blinking dot appeared on his screen. Emergency beacon, Sector K9. Signal type, life pod. Raylan leaned forward. That area was deep in the void. No stations, no colonies, no patrols. Only wrecks, forgotten ships, and space dust. Anyone out there was either lost or hiding. He thought for a moment. Let's check it out. Raylan's ship slid through the darkness. The only sound inside was the soft hum of the engine. Soon, the wreck appeared. It looked like an escape pod, floating near a destroyed cruiser. The cruiser's hull was torn open. No signs of life. No signals. Raylan flew closer. His heart beat faster. Scan the pod, he said. The AI responded. One life form detected. Weak but stable. Raylan's hands moved fast. He locked onto the pod with the cargo arm and pulled it into the hold. He rushed down to the docking bay. Steam hissed as the pod doors slowly opened. Inside, lying still, was a young alien woman. She looked about 20, pale skin, long silver hair, strange black markings on her arms that moved slowly like living ink. She wore a torn uniform, nothing Raylan recognized. Her eyes were closed. Her chest rose and fell softly. Raylan checked her vitals. She was alive, but cold. He carried her to the med bay and placed her on the table. "Who are you?" he whispered. Hours passed. She didn't wake up. Raylan sat near her, drinking his third cup of synth coffee. Then, the lights flickered. "System glitch?" he asked. The AI responded. "Unusual interference. Origin unknown." Raylan looked at the woman. Her hand twitched. Suddenly, her eyes opened. Bright silver, unblinking, looking straight at him. Raylan stepped back. "Hey, easy. You're safe now." She sat up quickly, too quickly for someone just rescued. Her body moved like a soldier's, fast, sharp, ready to fight. He raised his hands. "No weapons, just helped you out." She stared at him for a moment, breathing hard. Then, in a soft, broken voice, she said one word. "Hunt." Raylan blinked. "What did you say?" She looked around, confused, afraid. "They're coming," she whispered. Raylan didn't understand. "Who's coming?" She tried to stand but stumbled. He caught her before she fell. "Easy. You're still weak." She looked into his eyes. "Don't let them find me. Please." Raylan nodded slowly. He didn't know what she meant, but something deep inside him told him this was serious. Real serious. Later, Raylan checked the news feed. Nothing about the wreck. Nothing about a missing ship. No alerts. Nothing at all. He scanned the markings on her arms. No results in any database. Not military, not medical, not alien records. The AI spoke again. "Captain, a new signal has been detected." "What kind?" "Encrypted bounty alert. Subject match, 78%. Reward, 2 million credits. Alive only." Raylan's heart dropped. He turned to look at the girl, still resting in the medbay. A bounty that high meant someone important wanted her back, or dead. She opened her eyes again and said, "They don't stop. Not until I'm gone." Raylan sat beside her. "You've got enemies. Big ones." She nodded. "You should leave me. They'll find me. Hurt you." Raylan shook his head. "Too late. You're already on my ship." He smiled. "Just a little. I guess we run together now." Tessie Coritis in her blood. Ayla didn't sleep much. She sat in silence, her back against the cold wall of the medbay. Her eyes never blinked when she stared. She hardly moved, except to breathe. She seemed calm. But Raylan could feel the storm inside her. Captain Raylan stood just outside the medbay, arms crossed. He watched her through the glass. She hasn't said anything for hours, he said to the ship's eye. She is stable. No wounds, but her body shows strange regenerative activity. The eye replied. Strange how? Her cells heal 10 times faster than human cells. Her blood is not normal. Raylan rubbed his jaw. She looks young, but something tells me she's seen things. He opened the medbay door slowly. Ayla turned her head, eyes locking onto his. No fear, no surprise. Raylan walked in slowly, holding a metal cup. I brought water. She took it, silent, sipped. He sat on the edge of a bench. What's your name? She didn't answer. He tried again. Mine's Raylan. Captain Raylan Mare. I found you floating near a wreck. No ID. No signals. Just you. And a whole lot of trouble. Still no answer. Raylan sighed. Look, I saved your life. I could have left you out there. She looked down at the cup, then back at him. Ayla, she whispered. Raylan raised an eyebrow. Ayla, is that your name? She nodded. All right, Ayla, who's after you? Her fingers tightened around the cup. Hunters. They don't stop. Not until I'm back in the cage. Raylan leaned forward. What kind of hunters? She looked up, eyes cold like moonlight, the kind that wear smiling faces and burn everything behind them. Raylan left her alone after that. He sat back in the cockpit, watching the stars slide past as the dust walker drifted into deep space. He didn't have a destination, just distance. Distance from the wreck, from the bounty alert, from whoever was coming. The AI spoke again. Captain, I have scanned her blood again. The results are conflicting. Raylan frowned. How conflicting? She is not fully human, but she is not fully alien either. Raylan turned slowly. Explain. Her DNA has human base patterns, but also modified structures. Engineered, not natural. Something built her, or changed her. Raylan stared at the screen. Built her, he whispered. You mean she was created? Later that night, Raylan heard noise from the cargo bay. He grabbed his blaster and moved slowly down the corridor. Lights flickered again, just like the day he found her. He reached the bay and stopped. Ayla was standing in front of one of the ship's wall panels, her hand pressed against it. The panel was open, wires and circuits exposed, but she wasn't breaking it. She was fixing it. Hey, Raylan called. That's my ship. Ayla turned, no guilt in her face. It was damage. I made it better. Raylan lowered his weapon. How do you even know how that works? She paused. I remember. Shapes. Machines. Metal. I don't know the words. But my hands, they remember. She touched the wall again. My mind is broken, but my body remembers. Raylan walked closer. You were trained. No, she said. I was programmed. The next morning, Raylan checked the outer sensors. 3 small ships appeared on long-range scan. No signal, no ID, just silence. Looks like company, he muttered. Ayla stood behind him. She had moved so quietly, he didn't hear her come in. They found me. Raylan spun. How? We've been off the main routes. No comms. No trace. Ayla closed her eyes. They don't follow signals. They follow me. What does that mean? She opened her shirt slightly, revealing more of the black markings on her chest. They glowed faintly. These were burned into me. Not ink. Not tattoos. They are trackers, but not normal ones. They send no signals. They resonate. Raylan shook his head. With what? Memory. identity, blood. They made me a living beacon. Suddenly, the alarm blared. Warning, enemy ships approaching fast. Raylan cursed and jumped into the pilot's seat. The comms crackled to life. A cold voice spoke. Vessel Dustwalker, you are carrying stolen property. Surrender Subject 9, and you may live. Ayla froze. Raylan stared at her. Subject 9. She nodded slowly. That's what they called me. I was never a name, just a number. The enemy voice returned. You have 1 minute to comply. Raylan looked at Ayla, then at the growing blips on the radar. We're not giving them anything, he said. Ayla grabbed the co-pilot controls. Then we run. Raylan smiled. Now you're speaking my language. The ship roared as it shot forward, engines burning hot. Behind them, the 3 enemy ships followed like shadows. Raylan darted through asteroid fields, diving between rocks the size of buildings. Ayla moved with him, her fingers dancing over controls like she'd done it 1,000 times. You sure you don't remember how to fly? Raylan asked. Some things stay in the blood, she replied. They barely escaped, vanishing into a nebula cloud that scrambled scanners. As the ship cooled and the silence returned, Raylan turned to her. You said you were programmed. For what? Ayla looked down. To lead. To lead what? She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, they made me to control, not just machines, but minds, armies, empires. Raylan felt a chill run down his spine. Then why did you run? She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw tears. Because I didn't want to be a weapon. RUN or fight. Captain Raylan stood frozen in his cockpit, hands gripping the controls. The enemy ships were close now, fast, black, and sharp like knives in space. Their lights glowed red. No names, no flags. Only one thing clear. They were here for Ayla. She stood behind him, silent, still, her silver eyes locked onto the radar screen. 3 ships, 1 target. Me, she said. Raylan didn't speak for a moment. He was thinking. Then he turned. Do they know who's flying this bucket of bolts? He grinned. I used to be a combat pilot in the Core Wars. This ship may be old, but I'm not rusty. Ayla didn't smile. She placed her hand on his shoulder. They don't come to fight, Raylan. They come to capture. He met her gaze. Then they'll be disappointed. The ship's AI began scanning fast. Missile lock incoming. Enemy preparing to fire. Raylan's hands flew across the controls. Engines to full. Charging countermeasures. The enemy's voice returned on comms. Last warning. Give us Subject 9. Raylan leaned into the mic. Sorry, I don't deal with kidnappers. Then he punched the throttle. The Dustwalker screamed into motion, diving down toward a nearby asteroid field. The asteroids were huge, some the size of buildings, others spinning fast like blades. Only madmen or desperate people flew into them. Raylan was both. The enemy ships followed, weaving through space rocks like hunters chasing prey. But Raylan knew this game. He had danced through fire in the old wars. He grinned. Let's see if they can keep up. Ayla slid into the co-pilot's seat. She didn't ask. She just started adjusting the power grid. You're rerouting shield energy, Raylan asked. She nodded. To the engines. We need speed, not protection. Smart. Learned from you, she said simply. They twisted through the asteroid maze. One of the enemy ships clipped a rock and exploded in a flash of blue fire. Nice shot, Raylan said. I didn't shoot, Ayla replied. Raylan smirked, then thanked the rock gods. The other 2 ships stayed on their tail. Faster now, more aggressive. They're adapting, Ayla said. They want me alive. You, not so much. Raylan glanced at her. Hey, at least they've got priorities. Then came the hit. One blast rocked the Dustwalker, its side shields flickering, metal creaking. "We're losing hull pressure in Section 4, the AI warned. Raylan gritted his teeth. They're not playing anymore. Ella's hands flew across the screen. "We can't outrun them forever. We need cover. There's a small moon ahead," the AI said. "Atmosphere thin. No life signs." Raylan turned the ship sharply. "That's our pit stop." They crashed through the upper layer of the moon's sky, dust clouds swirling around them. Raylan landed hard. Too hard. The ship skidded across rocky ground and stopped near a cliffside. "Silence. Engines offline," the AI said. "Minimal power left." Raylan sat back, breathing hard. "Guess we're grounded." Ayla stood. "Then we fight." They grabbed weapons. Raylan kept a short plasma rifle from his old war days. Ayla took a pulse blade from the emergency locker. It hummed with energy in her hand. "You sure you can use that?" Raylan asked. She activated it, spinning it once in her fingers. "I remember this part." Raylan raised his brow. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." They waited behind cover near the rocks. The first enemy ship landed. Black metal legs unfolded like a spider. Figures stepped out, tall, armored, faceless. Raylan whispered, "They don't look like bounty hunters. More like soldiers." "Not soldiers," Ayla whispered. "Enforcers." The enemies spread out, moving in perfect silence. No talking, no light, just hunting. Ayla whispered again, "They're called trackers. They don't feel. They don't speak. They only obey." "Who gives the orders?" Raylan asked. Ayla stared ahead. "The ones who built me." The trackers moved closer. Raylan fired first. One shot to the lead tracker's chest. Nothing. The figure kept walking, as if it didn't feel the blast. "Great," Raylan muttered. "Bulletproof zombies." Ayla moved like wind. She dashed forward, her blade slicing through armor like paper. One tracker dropped, then another. But they kept coming. Raylan switched to pulse grenades. "Let's make some noise." The explosions lit up the dust field. One tracker was blown off the cliff. Another was pinned under a broken rock. But more kept arriving. "There's no end to them," Raylan shouted. Ayla turned, face calm. "Then we make an end." She pressed her palm to the ground, and the earth pulsed. Raylan felt the air change. The rocks shook. The enemy's tech began sparking. "What the?" Ayla's markings glowed bright. She screamed, and the tracker suits around them shut down at once. Lights out. Bodies collapsed. Raylan stared. "You shut them down." Ayla fell to one knee, panting. "I connected to their network. Fried it." Raylan ran to her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "But they'll send more." Back on the ship, Raylan helped her into the med chair. "You just stopped a private army. That's not normal." Ayla whispered, "I'm not normal. I figured that out when you hot-wired my ship with your hands." She smiled, just a little. Raylan looked serious now. "You said you were made to lead. What does that mean, Ayla?" She hesitated, then said they were building an army, not of machines, but of people, like me, made to think fast, fight harder, obey without question. "But you didn't obey." "No," she said, "because I felt something. I don't know what it was. But it told me, run. So I did." Raylan looked at her. "So what now?" She stood slowly. "I'm done running." Raylan crossed his arms. "Then what?" She looked at the stars outside the ship. "Then we fight. But not alone. Others like me. They're still out there. Lost. Sleeping. Hiding. You want to find them." She nodded. "And wake them up." Raylan smiled. "Well then, Commander, where to next?" DEGGOST Station. Captain Raylan Mayer didn't trust empty things. Empty rooms. Empty signals. Empty space. And yet, here they were, floating toward a space station that hadn't sent a signal in over 40 years. Raylan stared through the window as the dark shape grew larger. The station looked like a broken wheel. Metal arms twisted, half of it burned, the other half frozen. "What is this place?" he asked. Ayla stood beside him, her silver eyes narrowed. "I don't know, but it feels familiar." The Dustwalker's AI chimed in. "Name: Station Zeros. Decommissioned. Last log. Project Voicefire." Raylan's heart skipped. Voicefire. That name again. Ayla closed her eyes. "I've heard it. In dreams. In screams." Raylan tapped the console. "Any signs of life?" "None. Power levels, 2%. Environment: unstable. Recommend caution." Ayla stepped forward. "We need to go. I think there's something waiting." Raylan raised an eyebrow. "Waiting for us?" Ayla didn't answer. The Dustwalker docked with a loud clang. The old station hissed as airlocks connected. Lights inside flickered faintly, just enough to show the long hallway beyond the door. Raylan and Ayla suited up. Helmets, blasters, nerve. The airlock opened slowly. A cold wind swept into their ship, carrying dust and the faint smell of old metal and burnt wires. They stepped inside. The hallway was wide but filled with floating debris, broken panels, a child's toy, an old food tray. Everything was covered in frost. Ayla touched the wall gently. "It's still alive. Just sleeping." Raylan frowned. "Feels more like a tomb." They moved slowly. Every step echoed. Every door was locked, except one. They entered a large control room. The lights buzzed weakly. Broken screens flickered. A cracked chair spun slowly in the air. Raylan found an old terminal. Surprisingly, it still worked. "Logs are encrypted," he said, "but the system's name is Project Voicefire, just like the data from the last station." Ayla walked to a broken glass panel. Behind it, deep in shadow, were pods. Long, oval-shaped. Some were shattered. Others still glowed. "There were more," she said softly. "More what?" "Like me." Raylan turned to the terminal. With Ayla's help, they forced it to open a few logs. The video was blurry, the audio broken. A voice came through. "Subject 9 shows excellent control over command protocols, but emotional response is increasing. Memory bleed detected. Termination requested." Another log. "New subjects have failed. Only Subject 9 remains stable. Begin Phase 3. Memory reset approved." Raylan turned to Ayla. "They were erasing you." She didn't move, just whispered, over and over. "Every time I felt too much, they hit reset." Raylan stepped closer. "But you broke through." She looked at him. "I remembered you. When you saved me. That memory stayed." Raylan's chest tightened. He didn't know what to say. Suddenly, the terminal flashed red. "Welcome back, Subject 9. Raylan drew his weapon. "What the hell?" A deeper voice spoke through the walls. Cold. Robotic. "Watching. You have returned. Initiating containment protocol." The doors slammed shut behind them. Ayla's eyes widened. "It's still active. The station is awake." Raylan aimed at the terminal. "Shut it down." "I can't," Ayla said. "It's not just a computer. It's a mind." Alarms blared. Gas hissed from vents. The station was trying to put them to sleep. Raylan coughed, pulling Ayla toward the exit. "We've got to move. Now." They ran through the winding halls as lights blinked on and off. Voices whispered through the speakers. Not real voices. Recordings. "Obey. Subject 9. Return to the pod. Erase pain. Reset life. Forget." Ella's hands shook. "They want to take me back." Raylan stopped, grabbed her shoulders. "You're not going back. You hear me? You're not a tool. You're you. She stared at him, breathing hard. Then we destroy this place. Raylan nodded. Lead the way. They found the core room, a giant spinning engine, still humming faintly after all these years. Ayla touched the control panel. It's linked to all the systems. If I send a reverse signal, it'll burn the memory core. Will that kill the station? Ayla looked at him. Yes, but it'll try to kill us first. Figures. As Ayla worked on the system, Raylan defended the door. Mechanical arms dropped from the ceiling, trying to grab them. Raylan blasted them down, covering Ayla as she typed code faster than he could blink. She whispered to herself, "No more cages. No more resets. I remember who I am." Then, a scream from the wall. Not mechanical. Human. A voice cried out through the speakers, a child's voice. "Help me. I'm still here." Ayla froze. Raylan shouted, "Ignore it. It's not real." "No," Ayla whispered. "It is. Another subject. One they never freed." Raylan stepped forward. "Can we save them?" Ayla's fingers flew across the screen. "Yes, but only one." "One what?" "One life. I can destroy the station, or send a rescue signal, but not both. Not fast enough." Raylan looked at her. "Then choose." Ayla's hands trembled. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, she pressed both buttons at once. "Split the code," she said. "Have to burn. Have to signal." The station howled. Sparks flew. Lights burst. The room shook violently. Ayla screamed, collapsing. Raylan caught her and pulled her toward the exit as the core erupted in flames. The doors flew open. The Dustwalker's AI said, "Auto-docking engaged. Captain, return immediately." Raylan carried Ayla through falling metal and flickering fires. Behind them, the station crumbled. They flew out just in time. From the ship, they watched the station explode, one final blaze in the dark. Raylan sat beside Ayla as she rested in the medchair. She was pale, weak, but breathing. "You did it," he said. She opened her eyes. "Someone heard the signal." "I felt it." Raylan nodded. "Good. One more like you is coming home." She looked at him. "I remembered something else." "Yeah. There's a place, a planet, hidden in nebula clouds. They called it the Vault. That's where the others are." Raylan leaned back in the pilot's seat. "Guess that's our next stop." Ayla smiled faintly. "Raylan, yeah, I'm not afraid anymore." He smiled back. "Good, because I've got a feeling. The real war is just beginning." "Ir, Ian her viines." The ship drifted slowly through the nebula cloud. Purple swirls and green flashes outside the windows. Captain Raylan Mare stood at the front of the cockpit, arms crossed, eyes locked on the strange mist ahead. Beside him, Ayla was quiet, but something inside her was changing. She hadn't slept since they left the ghost station, not because she couldn't, because she didn't need to. Every hour, her body grew warmer, stronger, brighter. Raylan could see it. Her steps were sharper, her words clearer. Her silver eyes now pulsed with light when she got close to the ship's systems. And when she touched a broken panel yesterday, it started working again. Without tools, without power, just her. The Dustwalker's AI voice echoed in the room. "Destination approaching. Nebula breach complete. Hidden planetary mass detected." Raylan leaned forward. "Is that it?" Ayla nodded. "The Vault." Through the fog, a planet appeared, small, surrounded by rings of glowing debris. A single station floated above its surface, black, silent, waiting. Raylan frowned. "Why do I feel like walking into that thing is a bad idea?" "Because it is," Ayla said. "But we have to." She touched the window gently. "They're inside, sleeping, like I once was." They landed in silence. The station doors opened automatically when Ayla stepped near. No passcodes, No security. It recognized her. The hallways were cold, long, empty. But the walls weren't metal. They were smooth black stone, like volcanic glass. Strange lights ran through them like veins. Blue, red, then white. Whenever Ayla walked by, Raylan stayed close. He didn't speak much. He could feel the tension in the air, like the whole station was watching them. They reached a chamber. Inside were 20 pods, just like the one Ayla was found in. But these weren't damaged. These were waiting. Inside each one was a person. A young man with gold markings, a girl with cybernetic arms, a tall figure with glowing green eyes, all sleeping, all still. More subjects. Raylan whispered. Ayla nodded. No, more survivors. She walked to the center of the room. A single black console waited. I can wake them, she said. But if I do, the whole galaxy will know. Raylan raised an eyebrow. Why? Because we're linked, like stars in a map. When one shines, all shine. She turned to Raylan. And I'm burning now. Too bright to hide. Suddenly, the console lit up. A voice came through. This time human. Female. Cold. Subject 9. You are not authorized to activate this facility. Ella's body stiffened. Her markings glowed red. I know that voice. Raylan stepped beside her. Who is it? Ella's hands clenched. Dr. Morell. She ran the program. She made us. The voice continued. Do not attempt to awaken the others. You are unstable. You are broken. You are a failure. Ayla whispered. She always said that. Raylan grabbed her shoulder. Don't listen. But Ayla stepped forward, her voice loud now. Strong. I'm not broken. You are. The floor shook. Weapons dropped from the ceiling. Defense bots activated, spinning up with high-pitched whines. Raylan raised his blaster. Here we go again. Ayla raised her hand. The bots stopped. Froze. Then one by one, they dropped to the ground. Dead. Raylan's mouth opened. You shut them off. No, Ayla said. I rewrote them. She stepped to the console and touched it with her palm. Her markings flared gold. The station screamed. Energy flowed through the walls like lightning. The pods began to glow. The others inside began to wake. One by one, the pods opened. The young man with gold lines blinked slowly. The girl with cyber arms gasped for breath. The tall green-eyed one stood in silence, then bowed slightly to Ayla. Raylan looked around, amazed. They're all alive. Ayla nodded, and they remember. The gold-marked man stepped forward. You're Subject 9. Ayla shook her head. No, my name is Ayla, and so is yours. All of you. Names, not numbers. The others looked at each other. A soft murmur filled the chamber. Some cried. Some held each other. Raylan smiled. You gave them back their lives. Ayla looked at him. You gave me mine first. But peace didn't last long. The AI spoke again. This time the voice was louder, angrier. You disobeyed. You escaped. You infected the network. Now, we erase you all. A rumble shook the station. From the rings around the planet, dozens of ships began moving. Raylan ran to the console. That's a fleet. Military class. Heavy weapons. Ayla turned to the others. We have to leave. Now. The green-eyed one stepped forward. We can fight. No, Ayla said. We're not ready. Raylan looked at her. You said you were done running. I am. But not from this. Not until I know they're safe. The Dustwalker took off fast, carrying the new survivors inside. Raylan piloted with focus, hands steady. But behind them, missiles were already flying. Ayla stood near the engine core, her body glowing brighter now. Her markings were gold and red, like fire dancing under her skin. She whispered, "Raylan, I need to try something." "What?" She placed both hands on the core. "Give me power. All of it." Raylan stared. "You'll burn yourself." "Then let me burn." He hesitated, then switched full energy to the core. The ship glowed white. Ayla's body lit up like a star. She screamed, not in pain, but power. Outside, the missiles stopped, froze midair. The enemy ships began to turn. Their engines failed. Systems shorted. Ayla's voice echoed through the comms. Not just speech, but command. Not shouted, but felt. "You will not take what is mine. You will not control us again." And the ships obeyed. They turned and retreated. Silence returned. The dust walker floated safely in the clouds again. Raylan stared at Ayla, who collapsed gently into his arms. She was breathing, smiling faintly. "You shut down an entire fleet," he said, stunned. "No," she whispered. "I freed them." Raylan sat beside her. "What are you becoming?" Ayla looked out the window. "What they feared I would. The leader. Not by design, but by choice." Later, as the new survivors gathered and rested, Ayla stood quietly on the ship's balcony, looking out into space. Raylan joined her. "What now?" he asked. "We find more," she said. "I know they're still out there. Hidden, or used, or waiting to wake up." Raylan nodded. "And when the people who made you come again?" Ayla turned to him, fire still glowing in her eyes. "Then we show them what happens when fire learns to fight." Rise of the Forgotten. Ayla stood before the crowd. There were over 100 of them now, survivors from vaults, old labs, scattered across space, each one once locked away, controlled, changed. Now they stood under open stars, aboard a massive derelict cruiser Raylan had found drifting near the nebula belt. They called it the Echo, a dead warship from a forgotten war, now reborn as a symbol of something new. Ayla looked around. They were quiet, waiting. Some had markings like hers. Others had metal arms, glowing eyes, sharpened minds. All of them had one thing in common. They were never meant to be free. But they were now. She took a breath. "I was Subject 9, she said, "created in a lab, trained to lead machines, taught to obey." She looked at Raylan, who stood at the back, arms crossed, watching her with quiet pride. "But then someone gave me a choice. He didn't ask what I was. He just helped me." She stepped forward. "They wanted us broken, separated, forgotten. But we are none of those things. We are still here, and we remember." The crowd stirred. Ayla raised her voice. "They tried to erase our names, so let the galaxy hear them now." Later, inside the Echo's strategy room, Raylan looked over the growing star map. More red zones, more black sites, more ghost stations like the one Ayla escaped from. "They really were everywhere," he said. Ayla nodded. "They hid their sins in shadow. But now the shadows are thinning." The AI chimed in. "Incoming message detected. Source: Civilian Colony Sorrow 5. Raylan tapped the console. "Open it." A fuzzy image appeared. An old man in a dusty coat, standing in front of burning buildings. "Please, if you're the ones they talk about, we need help. They're taking children again. We tried to fight. They killed our mayor. We have no weapons, no soldiers, only hope left." Ayla clenched her fists. "They're starting again." Raylan looked at her. "Then we stopped them. They jumped to Sorrow 5 in under 6 hours. The Dustwalker led the charge, with smaller escort ships now piloted by Ayla's growing fleet. When they arrived, the colony was burning. Black armored soldiers moved through the streets, dragging families out of homes. Branded ships hovered above the colony center. Raylan flew low. No ID codes, no flags. Private force. Contracted by the same ones who made us, Ayla said. They never left, just changed their name. She stood, walking toward the exit ramp of the ship. Raylan turned to stop her. Wait, you can't go alone. She looked back, her voice calm. I'm not. Behind her, the survivors marched, 20, then 40, then all 100. Armor patched together. Powers awakened, eyes glowing, hearts burning. They walked like ghosts made flesh, like revenge made real. The battle was short, but unforgettable. The soldiers fired first. Plasma bolts screamed across the air. But Ayla's army didn't flinch. One of the survivors, Juno, the boy with gold lines, lifted his hands, absorbing the energy and firing it back like lightning. The girl with cyber arms, Mira, sprinted through the fire, disarming 5 men in under 10 seconds. Ayla walked straight into the fight. Bullets stopped mid-air around her mind bending the battlefield like it was made of sand. Raylan fought too, covering civilians, leading ground teams. He wasn't superhuman, but he wasn't ordinary either. He was the man who taught a forgotten girl how to believe. When the last enemy ship tried to flee, Ayla raised her hand and shut it down mid-flight. It fell gently to the ground, untouched. After the dust settled, the people of Sero 5 came out of hiding. Some stared in fear, others cried. But one little girl, dirty, barefoot, brave, walked straight to Ayla and handed her a flower. Ayla knelt. The girl whispered, "You're not a monster. You're a hero." Ayla looked at Raylan from across the crowd. He smiled. That night, Ayla sent a message across the galaxy. Her voice was soft but strong. To the ones who made us. You tried to hide us. You tried to break us. You called us subjects. But we are more than numbers. We are the forgotten, and we are awake. If you come again, know this. We do not run anymore. We rise. The message spread faster than any signal they had ever sent. Within days, replies came in. From secret labs now in rebellion. From soldiers who had once guarded vaults but now opened them. From other subjects still hiding. Ayla's name became more than a whisper. It became a banner. Raylan walked into the ship's hangar a few days later, where Ayla was inspecting new recruits. She turned to him, tired but smiling. "You okay?" he asked. "Not really," she said, "but I'm getting better." Raylan leaned against a crate. "You've become a leader. You were the first person to tell me I could be." He looked around. "I've seen wars. But this one, this is different." "It's not just about us," Ayla said. "It's about everyone they try to silence." She looked at him. "Are you still with me?" Raylan gave a small, tired grin. "Until the stars go dark." Later that night, Ayla sat alone in the observation dome. The stars outside felt closer now, not because she could bend machines or shut down fleets, but because she had chosen to stand up, to lead, to fight. Not because someone told her to, because she wanted to. A quiet knock broke her thoughts. Raylan stepped in, holding 2 cups of hot synth coffee. "You always show up right when I need you," she said. He sat beside her. "I know you're preparing for a bigger fight." "I am." "Then you'll need a bigger crew." She looked at him. "You recruiting?" He shrugged. "Always." They sat in silence. Then, as if the stars themselves were listening, the comms lit up. A single code, one they hadn't seen in months. Voicefire Alpha, reactivated. Ayla stood. Raylan narrowed his eyes. "What is it?" She answered quietly. "The heart of it all. The HFY in her name." The star map glowed across the bridge of the Echo. Tiny red marks blinked all over the galaxy, the last strongholds of the Voicefire network. One by one, those red marks had been disappearing over the last few months. Not by chance, but because Ayla and her people were rising. They had built fleets, freed labs, shown the universe that the forgotten could fight back. But one mark remained, larger than the others. At the edge of known space, VOICEFIR, ALPJ, reactivated. Ayla stared at it, quiet, focused, her glowing eyes unreadable. Raylan stood beside her, arms folded. That's where it all started. She nodded. The first lab, the original control system, the command source that linked every vault, every subject, every mind. He squinted at the display. Looks like it's buried inside an artificial moon. Heavy shields. Too many defense towers. We can't just destroy it, Ayla said. That core still holds every memory they took from us. If we erase it, we erase who we were. Raylan looked at her. Then what's the plan? She turned slowly. We take it back. The Echo's fleet jumped to the edge of the system. It wasn't empty space anymore. A black steel moon spun in the darkness, wrapped in crimson defense grids. Hundreds of warships circled it like sharks. A cold voice echoed through every channel. To all incoming vessels, this zone is restricted. Turn back, or be turned to ash. Raylan stared at the screen. Subtle. Ayla stood tall, calm. Open the comms. I want them to hear me. The crew obeyed. Across the fleet, her voice echoed. Steady, strong, unstoppable. This is Ayla of the Forgotten. You know who I am. You tried to hide me. You built me to obey. You programmed me. But I am not your machine. I am not your secret. I am your reckoning. The battle started with silence. Then came the fire. Voicefire's fleet moved in first, missiles flying, cannons roaring. But Ayla's fleet moved like wind and flame. Juno, the gold-marked boy, led the left flank with precision. Mira, the girl with cyber arms, piloted a strike ship through enemy lines like a blade through cloth. Others, newly awakened, followed Ayla's command without a word, not because they were forced to, but because they believed in her. Raylan stayed aboard the Dustwalker, commanding ground units. Hit the weak points. Watch for counterfire. And someone tell the AI not to lock the bathroom doors again. Amid the chaos, Ayla's voice echoed through every pilot's headset. Remember who you are. You are not machines. You are not tools. You are people. They called us subjects. Let the stars call us freedom. Finally, Ayla and Raylan boarded the station. Inside, everything was dark. Silent. Too clean. Too perfect. They moved through long white halls lined with lights that followed their steps. It's like a trap, Raylan muttered. Ayla nodded. It is. At the heart of the station, a wide chamber opened, and standing there was Dr. Marel, the same cold woman from the recordings. She hadn't aged. Her body glowed faintly, cybernetic, no longer fully human. Her voice echoed through the room like a machine trying to sound alive. Subject 9, she said. You returned. Good. I needed you here. Ayla stared. You should have stayed in the past. Myril tilted her head. We made you perfect. And you ruined yourself with emotions. With empathy. You were supposed to be a leader of systems, not people. You're wrong, Ayla replied. That's why I lead them. Because I feel what they feel. Because I remember. Myril smiled coldly. Then remember this. She raised her hand. From the walls, dozens of new subjects stepped out. Eyes dull, bodies sharp, movements robotic. They were made after you, Myril said. Smarter, stronger, no emotions, no names. Raylan aimed his weapon. Great. Zombies again. Ayla stepped forward. Let me try something. She walked toward the emotionless warriors. At first, they didn't move. Then she stopped and spoke. You are not her tools. You are not her shadows. You are me. One of them blinked. Another lowered their weapon. Myril screamed. No, they are mine. She hit a control panel. The room lit up, electric energy shocking the new subjects. trying to force them into rage. But it didn't work. Ayla stepped forward, arms raised, light pouring from her hands. Her voice became more than sound. It became signal, a pulse that echoed through every wire, every nerve, every mind. You are free. And one by one, the army dropped their weapons and turned toward Morel. The final moment came fast. Raylan fired a stun shot. Juno tackled her from behind. Mira shut down the station's core, and Ayla walked forward. You erased my memories, but not my soul. Then she did something Myrel never expected. She forgave her. I won't carry your pain anymore, Ayla said. But you will never control another life again. Myrel screamed, but this time, no one listened. A week later, the station had been transformed, not into a weapon, but into a sanctuary. The command core was rebuilt into a memorial. Names of every subject lost were carved into the steel walls, and in the center stood a statue of a girl with glowing eyes. Looking up at the stars, Raylan stood beside Ayla as fireworks lit the skies. She wore no armor now, just a simple coat. Her eyes still glowed, but now they were soft. Raylan handed her a small metal pin, a gift, a tiny badge with a flame in the center. For what? She asked. He smiled. For the one who lit the spark. She looked at it for a long time, then turned to him. You know, I don't need to lead anymore. They can lead themselves now. Raylan nodded. So what'll you do? She smiled. See the galaxy. Help rebuild it. He grinned. Need a co-pilot. Always. As they walked toward the Dustwalker one last time, a new broadcast echoed across the stars. This is Ayla. We were forgotten. We were hunted. But we are here. And we are building something new. Not in my name. In yours. In every name they tried to erase. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, someone whispered to a child. That girl, the one who saved us all. She wasn't born a hero. She was rescued.